When James Rothschild stood up in front of 200 of America's wealthiest parents and declared that Clara Washington didn't belong in their world, he had no idea that the quiet mathematics teacher sitting in the corner was about to make a single phone call that would destroy his family's $5 billion empire in exactly 37 seconds. What he couldn't see beneath Clara's patient smile was the power to turn his privileged life into absolute nothing. And he was about to learn exactly what happens when you insult the daughter of the man who controls your entire future. The mathematics are brutally simple. One insult plus one phone call equals the complete annihilation of a 300-year-old banking dynasty. But let me take you back to where this nuclear revenge story began. 3 weeks earlier, when Clara Washington walked into the most exclusive school in America, carrying a Target briefcase and wearing a $19 dress that would soon become the most expensive outfit in James Rothschild's nightmares. The marble floors of Pemberton Academy gleam like mirrors under crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's houses. This isn't just a school. It's where America's future rulers learn to crush the weak and inherit the earth. Every hallway whispers with the sound of designer shoes worth more than teachers' salaries. Every locker is mahogany masterpiece, and every student represents billions in family wealth that could buy small countries. Into this temple of privilege walks Dr. Clara Washington on a crisp Monday morning that will forever divide her life into before and after. 28 years old, dark-skinned in a sea of pale faces, carrying worn leather and wearing modest navy that screams, "I don't belong here," to every entitled teenager watching her approach room 301. If you're already sensing that something absolutely incredible is about to unfold, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories where underdogs rise and justice gets served ice cold. And if these tales of the powerless finding their strength inspire you as much as they inspire me to tell them, the thanks button below helps keep these life-changing stories coming. Now back to Clara's story, because what these privileged bullies are about to do will shock you. Advanced calculus at Pemberton Academy isn't just mathematics. It's a breeding ground for future titans of industry, where 18 students worth more than entire city budgets learn the equations that will help them dominate global markets. Clara enters to find her classroom arranged like a throne room, with 3 boys sitting at the back like kings surveying their domain. James Rothschild, heir to banking billions spanning continents, checks his $50,000 Patek Philippe and smirks. His blonde hair catches the morning light streaming through windows that overlook Manhattan like a conquered territory. Beside him lounges Bradley Sterling, whose steel empire built half the city's skyline, and Michael Vanderbilt, whose real estate dynasty owns more land than some European nations. "Class," Clara begins, her voice steady despite hostile stares that could freeze blood. "I'm Dr. Washington, and I'll be teaching advanced mathematics this semester. I know some of you might find the material challenging, but I promise we'll master it together." She turns toward the smartboard, and that's when James strikes with surgical precision. "Excuse me!" His voice slices through the room like a blade forged from pure entitlement. "I think there's been some administrative error. This is advanced calculus for students heading to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, not remedial mathematics for diversity hires." The silence that follows could power nuclear reactors. 18 teenagers hold their breath, while Clara's hand freezes on the marker, her dark skin burning with humiliation as snickers ripple through expensive air like poison gas spreading through trenches. She turns slowly, maintaining professional composure that costs her more than these students will ever understand. I assure you, Mr. Rothschild, there's no mistake. I graduated summa cum laude from MIT with a PhD in advanced mathematics, and I've been specifically hired to challenge minds like yours. MIT. Bradley Sterling's laughter echoes off marble walls like gunshots in a cathedral. Did they need to fill their charity quota that year? The words hit Clara like physical blows, each syllable designed to wound, to diminish, to remind her that she's an intruder in their sacred space. Clara breathes deeply, choosing battles like a general planning long-term warfare. She continues her lesson while James orchestrates disruption with the precision of someone who has never faced consequences. Every few minutes brings fresh assault. Is this really how they teach at state schools? And maybe we should request a qualified instructor, and I don't think she understands our academic standards. By class end, Clara's hands shake as she erases equations that took years to master. She has taught brilliant minds at prestigious universities, but never encountered such calculated cruelty wrapped in designer uniforms and expensive cologne. James pauses at her desk as students file out, leaning close enough that she smells his $1,000 fragrance. Just so we understand each other, he whispers with casual venom. This is our world, not yours. You're here because they had to hire you, not because you belong with people like us. Clara watches him leave, something cold settling in her chest. She checks her phone and sees 17 missed calls from someone listed simply as Dad. Not knowing that while she endured humiliation in room 301, her father, Marcus Washington, was 30 floors above Manhattan, finalizing details of the largest technology merger in corporate history with James Rothschild Sr. The harassment escalates like a military campaign designed to drive Clara from Pemberton Academy through systematic psychological warfare. By week's end, James and his aristocratic army have transformed cruelty into performance art, each attack more devastating than the last. Level 1 begins with theatrical disruption. They arrive late with elaborate excuses that steal attention from Clara's lessons. Submit homework that's deliberately wrong, but defend it with such arrogant conviction that other students question her expertise. Dr. Washington, James announces during a complex derivatives lesson. My private tutor says your methodology is outdated. Perhaps you should consider updating your knowledge to match our standards. Level 2 introduces property destruction disguised as accidents. James accidentally knocks coffee onto her lesson plans while apologizing with mock concern that drips condescension. Oh my goodness, I'm so clumsy around people who don't really fit our environment, he says loud enough for everyone to hear. The message, crystalline Clara, is foreign matter in their perfect system. Level 3 escalates to cafeteria warfare. During lunch period, James approaches Clara's isolated table with his entourage trailing like royal courtiers. Look at her, eating alone, he stage whispers to Bradley and Michael. I guess when you don't belong somewhere, making friends becomes impossible. Other faculty members pretend not to hear while Clara stares at her sandwich, feeling smaller with each calculated cruelty. Level 4 brings locker vandalism with surgical precision. Clara arrives Monday morning to find her materials scattered, her carefully prepared handouts soaked with mysterious liquid that smells suspiciously like expensive coffee. The custodial staff apologizes while explaining that security cameras in this section mysteriously malfunctioned over the weekend. Level 5 introduces classroom humiliation designed for maximum psychological damage during Parent Observation Day. James raises his hand with theatrical enthusiasm. Dr. Washington, I was discussing your teaching methods with my father last night. and he wondered whether you've ever actually applied calculus in real-world business scenarios, or if your knowledge is purely theoretical. The question strikes like a sniper's bullet, because James's father, Richard Rothschild, commands respect in international finance circles that Clara will never access. She responds professionally about mathematics, forming the foundation of economic progress. But James isn't finished destroying her credibility. "That's fascinating," he continues, voice rising so nearby parents can hear. "Because my father mentioned that people who can't succeed in competitive markets often retreat into academia. I was curious if that explains your career trajectory." A level 6 arrives as character assassination before the power elite, during Advanced Placement Parent Conference. James stands among families worth trillions and delivers his final assault. "I feel obligated to express concerns about our mathematics instruction," he announces with practiced solemnity. "Dr. Washington doesn't seem to understand the caliber of students she's teaching, or the standards we expect from Pemberton Academy faculty." Parent heads nod in agreement while Clara sits frozen, watching her professional reputation crumble under attack from someone young enough to be her student. The system that should protect educators instead protects the families whose donations fund marble hallways and crystal chandeliers. In the faculty lounge, colleagues offer sympathetic glances but maintain careful distance. Everyone knows that crossing Rothschild, Sterling, or Vanderbilt dynasties could end careers with single phone calls. Principal Harrison's office becomes neutral territory, where Clara receives gentle suggestions about finding employment that better matches her particular teaching style. The breaking point arrives during Pemberton Academy's quarterly parent conference, where America's ruling class gathers in surroundings that rival presidential palaces. Clara stands before 200 people who collectively control more wealth than most nations' GDP. Knowing this presentation will determine her professional survival, she has prepared meticulously, hoping to demonstrate remarkable progress her students achieved despite systematic disruption. Most have shown genuine improvement in advanced mathematics, and she takes pride in their intellectual growth. She doesn't notice James whispering urgently to Richard Rothschild in the third row, or the way his father's eyes narrow as he absorbs his son's version of recent events. Principal Harrison introduces Clara with enthusiasm typically reserved for root canals. "Our newest faculty member will now present on advanced calculus instruction," his tone suggesting this is medical procedure to endure rather than educational achievement to celebrate. Clara begins speaking about mathematical beauty, about equations describing universal laws, about students growing to appreciate logical elegance that governs reality itself. For 15 minutes, she forgets harassment, isolation, and constant undermining, simply sharing passion for teaching brilliant minds reach their potential. Then James Rothschild stands up like an executioner preparing the final blow. "Excuse me." His voice carries practiced condescension, amplified by acoustics and attention of American power elite. "I believe parents deserve to know certain facts about our mathematics instruction that haven't been adequately communicated." 200 heads turn toward the 18-year-old boy about to destroy a woman's career, while she stands helpless at the podium. Clara grips the lectern, knowing whatever follows will be devastating, but unable to prevent the catastrophe unfolding in slow motion. Dr. Washington seems to believe she understands our educational standards. James continues with authority borrowed from inherited wealth. But the truth is, she doesn't belong in this environment. She doesn't comprehend the excellence we demand, the preparation our students require for leadership positions in global society. The words hang like poison gas, while parents nod in comfortable agreement, their prejudices confirmed by someone young enough to seem innocent. around the auditorium. Satisfaction spreads among faces that have never questioned their right to judge others based on appearance and origin. Some people, James declares with casual cruelty that only comes from lifetime immunity to consequences, are born to serve others, and some are born to command. Dr. Washington, you clearly belong in the first category, not the second. The silence that follows could power cities. Clara stands publicly humiliated before the most influential families in America, feeling smaller and more isolated than ever before in her life. Principal Harrison doesn't defend her. Other teachers study their hands, and parents sit in comfortable validation of the teenager who just shredded her dignity. That's when Clara's phone buzzes with the text message that changes everything. Sweetheart, the Rothschild merger is tomorrow morning. $5 billion. Your thoughts, Dad? Clara stares at the screen while connections form like mathematical equations, clicking into perfect alignment. Her father, Marcus Washington, technology billionaire whose artificial intelligence empire spans quantum computing and advanced robotics. The man whose company, Washington Tech, has spent 6 months negotiating acquisition of Rothschild Banking's technology division for exactly $5 billion. She looks up to see James basking in parental approval. His father, Richard Rothschild, beaming with pride at his son's public destruction of the unsuitable educator. Clara realizes that, in exactly 12 hours, her father will either make the Rothschild family richer than ever before, or walk away from the deal entirely. And the decision rests completely with her. That night, Clara sits in her modest apartment overlooking the Hudson River. Laptop displaying confidential documents about Washington Tech's proposed acquisition of Rothschild Banking's struggling technology division as Marcus Washington's daughter and designated heir. She possesses access to information that could topple governments or create unimaginable wealth. The merger represents more than money. It's Richard Rothschild's final chance to save his family's banking empire from financial difficulties mounting for years. Without this deal, the Rothschild name will fade from prominence within a decade. Their influence will crumble, and James will inherit nothing but debt disguised as dynasty. Her phone rings with her father's warm voice. Clara, sweetheart, how was your day? Marcus Washington conquered business empires but still prioritizes his daughter above everything, and Clara feels tears threatening as she considers how to respond. Dad, she begins, voice steady, despite emotional storm raging inside. What would you do if someone publicly humiliated me in front of hundreds of people? What if they said I didn't belong in their world? That I was born to serve people like them? Silence stretches 10 seconds that feel like centuries. When Marcus Washington finally speaks, his voice carries quiet authority of someone who built technological empires from nothing and destroyed anyone threatening his family. Clara, he says, with dangerous edge creeping into paternal warmth, tell me exactly who needs to learn about consequences. She explains everything: systematic harassment, public humiliation, the way James Rothschild made her life a nightmare while his father prepared to become their family's newest business partner. She describes Richard Rothschild's satisfied expression as his son demolished her dignity. The conspiracy of silence that protected students while sacrificing educators. Honey, Marcus Washington's voice becomes steel wrapped in silk. Do you understand that tomorrow morning, Richard Rothschild flies to our headquarters to sign the most important deal in his family's history? Without this merger, his banking empire collapses within 18 months. And I can terminate negotiations with a single word from you. Clara closes her eyes and feels something shift in her chest, like a door opening after lifetime imprisonment. "Dad, what if I told you the Rothschild family doesn't respect the Washington family enough to deserve this partnership?" Then, her father replies with predator's satisfaction, finally finding worthy prey. "I would trust my daughter's judgment completely. The deal lives or dies based entirely on your recommendation." Sweetheart. Clara studies Manhattan's skyline through her window. Lights of a city that has always belonged to families like the Rothschilds, Sterlings, and Vanderbilts. Tomorrow, she'll return to Pemberton Academy as the same quiet mathematics teacher tormented for weeks. But now, she carries power to destroy the boy who destroyed her dignity. She spends remaining hours planning not just James Rothschild's downfall, but his complete humiliation. By dawn, she has crafted strategy that will transform his moment of greatest triumph into his family's most devastating defeat. The mathematics teacher told she didn't belong is about to demonstrate exactly who belongs where in the hierarchy of real power. But Clara's strategy extends beyond simple revenge. She begins reaching out to other victims of James's cruelty, building alliance of students, faculty, and staff who have suffered under the tyranny of privilege. She discovers Bradley Sterling has been blackmailing scholarship students. Michael Vanderbilt has been sexually harassing female classmates, and their reign of terror extends far beyond her personal experience. Her phone contains contact information for investigative journalists, regulatory agencies, and civil rights organizations who would be very interested in systematic abuse at America's most prestigious preparatory academy. Clara Washington is planning more than revenge. She's orchestrating revolution. Watching Clara plan her strategy while James sleeps peacefully in his mansion, completely unaware that his world is about to crumble around him. What would you have done in her position? Would you have shown mercy to someone who showed you none? Or would you have made them pay the ultimate price? Comment below, because what happens next will determine whether justice truly gets served. The next morning arrives with autumn air sharp enough to cut glass, and Clara Washington walks through Pemberton Academy's marble halls carrying herself like someone who has finally remembered she owns half the world. Her modest navy dress remains unchanged, her Target briefcase still worn at the edges, but something in her eyes burns with quiet fire that makes students step aside without understanding why. James Rothschild enters advanced calculus, riding the intoxicating high of his previous night's triumph. His public destruction of Clara at the parent conference has cemented his status as Pemberton Academy's unofficial emperor, and he wears his cruelty like a crown of thorns designed to wound anyone who dares challenge his supremacy. "Good morning, class," Clara begins, her voice carrying an unusual note of anticipation that makes several students look up from their phones, sensing something electric in the air. Today, we're exploring exponential decay, the mathematical principle describing how certain structures collapse when their foundation is removed. She writes an equation with fluid precision: VT e's V0x cut, explaining how value decreases exponentially when support systems fail. This formula can predict exactly how quickly empires fall when their underlying assumptions prove false. "Boring," James interrupts with characteristic disdain. "When will we ever need this? Some of us are inheriting actual businesses, not teaching other people's children basic mathematics." His cronies snicker appreciatively, but Clara simply smiles with dangerous sweetness that should terrify anyone with survival instincts. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Rothschild," she replies. "Let's make this relevant to your situation. Imagine a banking empire losing market share for 5 consecutive years, hemorrhaging clients to more innovative competitors, desperately needing a merger to survive. How quickly would that empire collapse if the merger vanished? James shifts uncomfortably because Clara's description hits too close to uncomfortable truths about his family's struggling finances. "That's a stupid hypothetical," he mutters, but his voice lacks usual conviction. Clara continues with mathematical precision that feels like prophecy, using exponential decay models. Such an empire would lose 63% of remaining value in year 1, 86% by year 2, and by year 3, she pauses dramatically, virtually nothing would remain. Over the following days, Clara begins implementing her master strategy through a series of calculated strikes that systematically dismantle the power structure protecting James and his allies. Her first victory targets Bradley Sterling's academic fraud scheme that has been hidden for months. Clara accidentally discovers Bradley's essay plagiarism while grading comparative literature assignments. She documents evidence meticulously, then presents findings to Principal Harrison with clinical precision. "I believe this warrants immediate investigation," she states, handing over proof that Bradley has been purchasing papers from professional writing services for 2 years. The revelation sends shockwaves through Pemberton Academy's administration because Bradley's father donated $12 million for the new athletics complex. But Clara's evidence is irrefutable, and even the most corrupt administrators cannot ignore blatant academic dishonesty when documentation is airtight. Bradley Sterling faces suspension pending full investigation. His early admission to Harvard suddenly in jeopardy. James watches his closest ally crumble while Clara maintains perfect professional demeanor, as if she's simply doing her job rather than orchestrating strategic warfare. Her second strike targets Michael Vanderbilt's sexual harassment of female students. Clara has been quietly documenting complaints from girls too afraid to report formally, building comprehensive case file that reads like criminal indictment. She presents evidence to the Title IX coordinator with devastating thoroughness. These incidents represent systematic pattern of predatory behavior, Clara explains, her voice carrying moral authority that makes administrators squirm in their leather chairs. Federal law requires immediate action to protect students from further harassment. Michael Vanderbilt finds himself facing expulsion hearings while his father's real estate lawyers scramble to contain damage. The boy who thought his family's wealth made him untouchable discovers that federal anti-discrimination laws apply even to billionaires' children. James watches his power base dissolve like sugar in acid rain while Clara continues teaching mathematics, as if nothing unusual is happening. But he's beginning to sense that the quiet teacher he's been tormenting possesses weapons he never imagined. The system pushback begins immediately as Pemberton Academy's power structure rallies to protect its remaining golden boy. Principal Harrison calls Clara into his office with barely concealed hostility crackling through expensive air like electrical storms. "Dr. Washington," he begins, his voice tight with controlled anger, "your recent investigations have caused considerable disruption to our school community. Perhaps you should focus on teaching rather than playing detective with our students' personal lives." Clara sits across from his mahogany desk with serene confidence that unnerves him completely. "Principal Harrison, I'm simply fulfilling my professional obligations to report academic dishonesty and protect students from harassment. Isn't that what we're all here to do?" Behind Harrison's fury, Clara senses desperation because Bradley Sterling's father is threatening to withdraw funding if his son faces consequences, while Michael Vanderbilt's family is considering legal action against the school for failing to protect their child from false accusations. The Rothschild family has also expressed concerns, Harrison continues, playing his trump card, about whether your teaching methods align with Pemberton Academy's educational philosophy. Perhaps a different institution might better suit your particular approach to instruction. The threat hangs between them like a sword. But Clara doesn't flinch because she knows something Harrison doesn't. Her father's technology empire has been quietly acquiring shares in Pemberton Academy's Board of Trustees for months, preparing for exactly this kind of confrontation. I appreciate your feedback, Clara responds with deadly calm, but I'm quite comfortable with my position here. In fact, I believe my teaching methods are producing excellent results. Don't you think? That afternoon, James escalates his personal attacks to desperate levels. He spreads rumors that Clara is mentally unstable, claims she's been stalking students, suggests she's using her position to target families whose success she envies. His whisper campaign gains traction among students whose parents echo similar prejudices. The near-defeat moment arrives when James discovers Clara's connection to ongoing investigations. He pieces together enough information to realize she's been systematically documenting evidence against him and his allies, building a case that could destroy everything he values. "You think you're so smart," he confronts Clara after class. His usual smugness replaced by genuine menace that makes several students step back instinctively. "But I know what you're doing, and I know people who can stop you before you destroy innocent families with your jealousy." His threat carries real weight because the Rothschild name opens doors that Clara's teaching credentials cannot. James has access to private investigators, legal teams, and political connections that could make her life impossible if deployed correctly. For the first time since beginning her campaign, Clara feels genuine fear because she realizes that James is more dangerous than she initially calculated. His privilege isn't just about money. It's about a network of power that protects people like him from consequences while crushing people like her who dare to fight back. That night, Clara receives threatening phone calls warning her to mind her own business and stop causing problems for good families. Her apartment building's security cameras mysteriously malfunction, and she finds her car tires slashed in the morning. The message is clear: back down or face escalation that could end her career and possibly her safety. Clara stares at her damaged vehicle and realizes she's reached the moment where retreat might be the wiser choice. The rally moment comes from an unexpected source. The students and faculty Clara has been protecting begin rallying to support her cause. 3 female students who were harassed by Michael Vanderbilt find courage to file formal complaints, their testimonies corroborating Clara's documented evidence. 2 scholarship students bullied by Bradley Sterling come forward with recordings of his threats and bribes. Their courage inspires others to break silence about systematic abuse that has poisoned Pemberton Academy's culture for years. Most surprisingly, several wealthy students whose families have influence equal to the Rothschilds join Clara's cause. They reveal that James, Bradley, and Michael have been blackmailing classmates, stealing test answers, and using family connections to cover up serious misconduct. "Dr. Washington showed us that we don't have to accept this," explains Sarah Pemberton, whose family founded the academy itself. "Just because our parents have money doesn't mean we have to tolerate bullies who think wealth makes them untouchable." Faculty members who remained silent for years suddenly find courage to report incidents they witnessed but never documented. A coalition of educators, students, and parents forms around Clara's leadership, united by shared commitment to justice over privilege. The tide turns when Marcus Washington's technology company announces a $50 million endowment for Pemberton Academy's expansion, contingent on implementing comprehensive anti-bullying programs and ethical leadership training, suddenly Clara's position becomes unassailable because attacking her means losing funding that could transform the school. Principal Harrison's tone shifts dramatically during their next meeting. Jerry Washington, perhaps we've been hasty in our assessment of your contributions to Pemberton Academy. Your innovative approach to education might be exactly what our institution needs. The climactic confrontation unfolds during Pemberton Academy's annual scholarship gala, where families worth trillions gather to celebrate educational excellence while networking among crystal chandeliers and marble columns. Clara stands before 400 of America's most powerful people, no longer as a struggling teacher, but as an honored educator whose methods are revolutionizing preparatory instruction. She has prepared her presentation carefully, knowing this moment will determine not just her future, but the future of every student who has suffered under the tyranny of privileged bullies. The auditorium buzzes with anticipation because everyone knows something extraordinary is about to happen. Tonight, Clara begins, her voice carrying across the vast space with authority that commands absolute attention. We celebrate not just academic achievement, but moral courage, the courage to stand up for justice when it would be easier to remain silent. James Rothschild sits in the third row beside his father, his usual arrogance replaced by growing anxiety as Clara's words seem directed specifically at him. Around the auditorium, students who know the truth hold their breath, while parents lean forward with interest. Over the past months, Clara continues, I've had the privilege of working with remarkable young people who have shown me that true leadership isn't about inheriting power, but about using whatever influence you possess to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The applause that follows is polite but uncertain because Clara's message carries undercurrents that make some parents uncomfortable. She's challenging assumptions about privilege and power that form the foundation of their social hierarchy. James can't contain himself any longer. He stands abruptly, his voice cutting through the formal atmosphere like a blade. Dr. Washington, with all due respect, some people in this room understand leadership because we were born to it. Others are just teachers who think they can lecture their betters about values they'll never truly comprehend. The silence that follows could power nuclear reactors. 400 of America's most influential people watch an 18-year-old boy publicly insult an educator in terms that reveal his complete lack of character or wisdom. Clara looks directly at James with serene composure that terrifies him more than any anger could. Mr. Rothschild, you're absolutely right that some people are born to leadership. I was indeed born to it, just not in the way you might expect. She reaches into her purse and removes her phone with movements that seem choreographed for maximum dramatic impact. I'd like to make a brief call that might clarify my background for those who remain uncertain about my qualifications. The number she dials is answered immediately. Hi, Dad. It's Clara. I'm at the Pemberton Academy Gala, and I wanted to discuss the Rothschild banking acquisition before you sign the papers tomorrow. The effect on James is instantaneous and devastating. His face drains of all color as he realizes the mathematics teacher he's been tormenting is calling someone about his family's most important business deal. I've had several weeks to observe the Rothschild family's values firsthand, Clara continues, her voice carrying across the silent auditorium like a judge pronouncing sentence. And I have serious concerns about whether they align with Washington Tech's commitment to respect, integrity, and ethical leadership. James tries to speak, to interrupt, to somehow prevent the catastrophe unfolding before 400 witnesses, but no sound emerges from his throat as he watches Clara destroy everything his family has worked toward. Yes, Dad, I'm absolutely certain. Clara states with finality that seals the Rothschild family's fate. I recommend we terminate all negotiations immediately. I don't believe this partnership would reflect well on the Washington family legacy. She ends the call and looks directly at James with expression of perfect calm. Class dismissed, Mr. Rothschild. The immediate aftermath unfolds like a financial apocalypse designed to demonstrate the true hierarchy of American power. James's phone explodes with calls and messages that can only mean his family's world is ending in real time. Richard Rothschild's face progresses through stages of disbelief, horror, and complete devastation as he realizes his son has been systematically attacking the daughter of the man who controls his family's survival. Around the auditorium, whispers spread like wildfire as people piece together the magnitude of what just happened. Ladies and gentlemen, Clara addresses the stunned crowd with voice that carries absolute authority. Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Dr. Clara Washington, daughter and heir of Marcus Washington, founder and CEO of Washington Tech. The revelation hits the audience like seismic shock because they're witnessing the destruction of one of America's oldest financial dynasties by someone they dismissed as insignificant. Clara has just demonstrated that real power often comes disguised as humility. The $5 billion merger that would have saved Rothschild banking has been terminated. She continues with clinical precision. Because some lessons about respect are worth more than money. James sits frozen in his chair, while his father rushes from the auditorium to make desperate phone calls that will prove futile. The 300-year-old Rothschild empire begins collapsing exactly as Clara's exponential decay equation predicted. Within hours. Financial news networks report the failed Washington Tech merger, and Rothschild Banking's stock price plummets 40% before trading is suspended. The family that seemed untouchable discovers that insulting the wrong person can cost everything. The resolution unfolds over the following months as systematic changes transform Pemberton Academy from a haven for privileged bullies into a model of educational excellence. Clara's position evolves from struggling teacher to head of academic innovation, her revolutionary programs attracting international attention. James Rothschild disappears from Pemberton Academy entirely, his family forced to liquidate assets to cover mounting debts while their banking empire crumbles in spectacular fashion. Bradley Sterling and Michael Vanderbilt face expulsion and criminal charges, their futures destroyed by their own choices. 6 months later, Clara receives an unexpected letter from James, now attending public school and working part-time to help support his family. His words carry genuine humility earned through devastating loss. Dr. Washington, he writes, losing everything was the best thing that ever happened to me. It taught me the difference between inherited privilege and earned respect. I hope someday I can prove that I learned the lesson you tried to teach me. Clara keeps the letter as reminder that sometimes the greatest victories involve helping enemies discover their better selves. The mathematics teacher who was told she didn't belong has transformed the entire educational system. The Rothschild empire has fallen. Justice has been served. A new arrogant student arrives at Pemberton Academy. Clara notices Preston Blackwood tormenting a scholarship student. She feels familiar, anger rising but also confidence. Will she need to teach another lesson about respect? Some people never learn from other people's mistakes. They have to make their own. 2 years after the Rothschild collapse, Dr. Clara Washington stands in her corner office watching new students cross the quad. Their faces bright with possibility, unmarked by casual cruelty. Through her window, she sees Preston Blackwood cornering a young scholarship student with familiar words, "You don't belong here." Clara picks up her phone and scrolls to a contact labeled Dad. But this time she's smiling, because some battles are worth fighting again and again. After all, the best teachers never run out of students who need to learn about consequences. The quiet revolution continues, and Clara Washington has become exactly what Pemberton Academy needed: someone who understands that true power means protecting those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of the cost to those who refuse to learn respect. In the end, the mathematics are simple: treat people with dignity, or discover that the person you're mistreating might just be the one person who can destroy everything you think you own. The quiet revolution continues, and Clara Washington has become exactly what Pemberton Academy needed: someone who understands that true power means protecting those who cannot protect themselves, regardless of the cost to those who refuse to learn respect. Her transformation of the institution extends far beyond policy changes. Clara has created a scholarship program that brings brilliant minds from every economic background into Pemberton's hallowed halls, funded entirely by Washington Tech's educational initiative. The marble corridors that once echoed with entitled cruelty now ring with diverse voices united by shared commitment to excellence rather than inherited privilege. James Rothschild's evolution proves most remarkable of all. 18 months after his family's collapse, he sends Clara a graduation photo from his public high school, where he finished valedictorian while working nights at a community center teaching mathematics to underprivileged children. His letter accompanying the image contains a single line, "You taught me that losing everything was the only way I could find myself." Clara frames both his original apology and this final message in her office. Reminders that redemption remains possible even for those who seem irredeemably lost. Sometimes the greatest mercy is allowing someone to face the full consequences of their choices, because only then can they discover who they were meant to become. But her work is far from finished. Preston Blackwood, heir to a media empire, has enrolled at Pemberton Academy with the same arrogant assumptions that destroyed James Rothschild. Clara watches through her office window as he corners scholarship student Isabella Martinez near the fountain, his voice carrying the familiar sneer, "People like you should be grateful we even let you in here." Clara reaches for her phone, scrolling past contacts labeled FBI Financial Crimes Division and SEC Investigation Team to find Dad, Marcus Washington. She has learned that preparation prevents the need for nuclear options. But sometimes a gentle reminder about advertising contracts can accomplish miracles. Preston Blackwood has no idea that his target's quiet mathematics teacher controls more power than his family's entire media conglomerate. He's about to discover that underestimating people based on appearance is the most expensive mistake anyone can make. In the end, the mathematics remain beautifully simple: treat people with dignity. Or learn that the person you're mistreating might just be the one person who can erase everything you think you own with a single phone call.